Hello, and thank you for watching this overview video of P6-Scrubber. P6-Scrubber is a tool developed by Emerald Associates that will take an XCR and allow you to clean up or remap data in that XCR prior to importing it into your P6 database. So as projects become larger and larger, and your team members are spread out all across either the country or sometimes even the world, getting a P6 database up and deployed in an environment that can be shared is difficult. And it's often not a luxury that a lot of us have. So we often get updates in other ways. We find most commonly those updates are going to come in the way of people sending in XCRs to get their information into the project. Now the problem with this is that when you are importing XCRs from someone else's database, you're going to get some of the information from their database that you don't necessarily want in yours. So what we've done is provide an easy tool to clean up XCRs prior to importing them into P6, so your production database doesn't get polluted with all sorts of codes, user-defined fields, and calendars that we don't necessarily want, or that we don't want to have overwrite what we already have. So these key fields and data are a lot of times what we need to keep clean, especially if we're doing corporate reporting. We've also found that clients who have very specific contract specifications on how a schedule needs to be put together were wanting the ability to take a look at that XCR prior to import and see what's in it so that they can give immediate feedback to those contractors sending in those schedules. So what we found with this tool is that it's really easy to keep your database clean with it. It's not really very hard to use, and so it's not really very hard to actually learn either. You don't have to be a P6 expert to learn how to use P6-Scrubber. So let's just take a look at the tool and how it works. So P6-Scrubber is deployed in two different formats. One format is not connected to a database. It can be a standalone. And the other is connected to your database. And it can be connected to more than one if that is what you need to have done. So in this case, just like P6, I can choose the database I would like to go into, and I'm going to again sign in with my username and password that I use for P6. When I sign in, I'm going to have some topics that are along the left-hand side here. That's going to allow me to deal with codes and UDFs, as well as resource remapping and role remapping. I have some units of measure that I can deal with, as well as I can view project calendars, roll down global calendars, and actually remap resource calendars as well. I can also keep a tab on my cost accounts. Now, the easiest way to build a definition in P6-Scrubber, the easiest way is to import an actual XCR that you are going to be scrubbing. So maybe this is the first XCR that you've gotten from your outside source, and you're going to import it in and just kind of take a look at what is involved with that XCR. When you do that, what can happen is you can go in and you can take a look at what was in the XCR, and in the case that I have this actually connected to my database, I can see if the data that they are providing actually matches to my database. So what I can do is I can hover over these yellow yield signs, and it's going to tell me what it's finding on this particular activity code, as the case may be. So it says that I have a dictionary validation that's failed. If I open up my dictionary, I can see that I have one that does not exist in my P6. Now I can either allow this value to come in, or I can actually remap that value to a value that is valid in my database. And of course, I want to have that description that also matches, and then it's going to check out. Now, in the case of my discipline here, that does not exist in my P6 database. Now, I want to keep that, but maybe I want to roll that down because this is a global project code. Maybe I want to roll that down into my project. So I can simply check mark this roll down, and that's going to tell P6-Scrubber that I want to roll that down. If I wanted to name it something else, I could, but in this case, I'm going to keep it. And then I see this little yellow light bulb here that's telling me I want to acknowledge that I'm actually going to let that roll down and come in with this XER. Now it's telling me that my dictionary validation has failed. And the reason that is because, of course, it's creating new dictionary values. So I can just go and I can acknowledge these and allow these all to come in. Or I could say I want to scrub some out, whatever. Now, in the way of resources, we can also remap those. So if I had, say, for instance, a different resource for this civil engineering draft, I could certainly go out there and take a look and see what I had to replace that, and then let P6-Scrubber change that. So if I wanted to make this roll it up to the civil engineering area, I could do that and report or get information at a higher level. Now I can also take a look at my units of measure. A lot of times we get definitions of units of measure that are different. So in my case, I do have an abbreviation that's similar, but I've got a different name and it is capitalized. So I can go ahead and remap that. Now in the way of calendars, at the global level, I have the option of rolling them down to the project level, or I can keep them as global. I want to roll all of these down. So I'm just going to go down and I'm going to select these. When I roll them down to the project level, of course, I'm keeping the information in these calendars, but I am maintaining it at the project level rather than at the global level. If I click into my project calendars, this is merely informational. In the resources, I can see if I have a resource calendar that actually matches the resource calendar in the XER. And I just want to remap that calendar for that resource or the resources that this calendar is applied to the standard 5-day resource calendar. Again, roles can be remapped and cost accounts can be verified and remapped, whatever I need to do with that. So when I'm done with the definition, what I can do is go out and I can save it. So when I open this up, you can see I've got several definitions that have already been saved. Now what I want to do is, let's say I want to scrub an XER file on my demo definition. If I select that and I say I want to load it, that's simply going to bring that definition and activate it in P6-Scrubber. And it's going to load up that demo definition. And I can tell that by up in the upper right-hand corner. Now I'm ready to scrub my XER files. When I scrub, all I have to do is go out and select the file, open it, and process it. Once it's processed, I have the ability to view the report. The HTML report is going to have a summary as well as more granular information about each one of my scrubs that I've defined and how P6-Scrubber changed the information in the XER. Now if I'm okay with this, I can go ahead, download the results, and if I'm not okay with it, I could go back and I could actually tweak my definition, save it, and rerun it. Now when I download, I'm going to get a copy of that HTML report as well as the XER that has been scrubbed. Then I'm ready to import into my P6 database. So I've already imported a file that's been run through Scrubber, and I can see very easily via these indicators how my XER was changed during the P6-Scrubber scrub. Now I can see that project ID was good, it's green. I had some changes on both my code types as well as my code type dictionaries. I can see that my district code came in cleanly. I did have a schedule status that came in and that was changed. I also have a notebook that comes in with my P6-Scrubber file that has the HTML report also available here. So I can keep the information of what happened with P6-Scrubber with the actual project. If I go into activities, what I can see is per activity how P6-Scrubber handled each piece of information. So we've tried to provide some very good data on what happened with your scrubbed file after you've scrubbed it with P6-Scrubber and imported it into P6. So some of the benefits that we've realized is that we're saving users time. None of that importing into maybe a scrubbing database and having to scrub manually and then, hopefully making sure that you didn't miss anything. It's configurable. You can save those definitions to be reused. And we automatically provide that flagging and those reports. It's going to help you keep your system clean. Your accuracy is also improved because you're not having to go in and manually look at each piece of information, and it helps you avoid importing data that is either missing or perhaps maybe wrong and is going to corrupt or pollute your database. So if you'd like to find out more about P6-Scrubber or any of our other tools, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you for joining.